4.1, which is the understanding of the organization and its context. Both ISO 14001 and ISO 45001 have the same understanding, whereby the organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and that affects its ability to achieve the intended outcomes. While ISO 9001, the organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and its strategic direction and that affects its ability to achieve intended results of GMS. For subclause 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations. For ISO 14001 and 9001 is for interested parties, while ISO 45001 is for workers and other interested parties. So the similarity of this content is whereby the organization shall determine interested parties that are relevant to the EMS, QMS or OHS management system, while the other point is different by each ISO. For subclause 4.3, determining the scope, the organization shall consider external and internal issues is applicable to all ISO, while for ISO 14001, the organization shall consider the compliance obligation. ISO 9001, the organization shall consider the requirements of relevant interested parties, and ISO 45001, the organization shall consider take into account the requirements. For subclause 4.4, it's about the ISO, which is EMS, QMS and its process, and OHS management system. They all have the same subclause, but for ISO 9001, they have additional, which is subclause 4.4.1, which is the organization shall determine the sequence and interaction of this process, and 4.4.2 is to the extent it shall maintain documented information to support the operation and its process.
All three ISO have the same subclause 5.1, which is leadership and commitment, but they have different content in the subclause. For ISO 40001, top management shall demonstrate leadership and commitment with respect to the environmental management system by ensuring the resources needed for the EMS are available and accept responsibility for EMS effectiveness. For ISO 90001 have additional under 5.1, which are general and customer focus. For the general, top management must lead by example and adhere to the quality management system. And for the customer focus, top management must lead by example and commit to putting the needs of the client first. For ISO 45001, ensuring the resources needed to establish, implement, maintain and improve the OHS management system are available and assume overall responsibility for the prevention of ill health and injury at work. Next, we move to the next subclause, which is environment policy. For ISO 40001, top management shall establish, implement and maintain an environmental policy that within the defined scope of its EMS. First, include a commitment to the protection of the environment, including prevention of pollution and other specific commitments relevant to the contents of the organization, and provide a framework for setting environmental objectives. For ISO 90001, under policy, it have 5.2.1, which is establish the quality policy. Top management shall establish, implement and maintain a quality policy that include a commitment to satisfy applicable requirements and provide framework for setting quality objective. And for ISO 45001, it have OHS policy. Top management shall establish, implement and maintain an OHS policy that include a commitment to fulfill legal requirement and other requirements and provide framework for setting the OHS objective. The three ISO also have this subclause 5.3, which is organization rules, responsibility and authorities by different in content. For ISO 40001, top management shall assign the responsibility and authority for ensuring the EMS conform to the requirement of this international standard. And for ISO 90001, top management shall assign the responsibility and authority for ensuring that the quality management system conform to the requirements of this international standard. And lastly, for ISO 45001, top management shall assign the responsibility and authority for ensuring that the OHS management system conform to the requirement of this document. I think that's all for me. I will pass to the next presenter. In 6.1.1 general part, there are a similarity of 14,001, 9,001, 45,001, which is the organization shall consider the issues, the requirements, the scope, and determine the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed to give assurance that the quality management system can achieve its intended results, prevent or reduce undesired effects, achieve improvement. And for 45,001, there are an extra point which is enhance desirable effects. Only 45,001 that have the consideration of determining the risks and opportunities of management system and its intended outcome. For clause 6.1.2, only the ISO 40,001 and 45,001 shows the different part where the 14,001 focus on the environmental aspects and 45,001 focus on hazard identification and assessment of risks and opportunities. At clause 6.1.3, there are only similarity with 14,001 and 45,001. For 14,001 is about compliance obligation, and for 45,001 is about determination of legal requirements and other requirements. There are a similarity about both of it, but the difference is for 14,001 is about compliance obligation, and for 45,001 is about legal requirements. Planning action for 14,001, 19,001, and 45,001, they are different about the action planning, but the similarity of them is how they act to the planning. For 90,001, 14,001, and 45,001 objective, there are only 5 points that they have a similarity objective, which is consistent with the policy, measurable, monitor, communicate, and update as appropriate. After planning and know the objective, now planning should achieve objective. So how to achieve objective? For 19,001 and 14,001 and 45,001, there are a similarity of planning to achieve objective. When planning how to achieve objective, the organization shall determine what will be done, what resources will be required, who will be responsible, when it will be completed, how the results will be evaluated. So the differentiate of the 14,001 and 45,001, they have the same point, which is the last point, how the actions to achieve objective will be integrated into the organization business process. But this point is not mentioned in 9,001. However, for 9,001, there are planning of changes. When the organization determines the need for changes to the quality management system, the changes shall be carried out in a planned manner. So this is what in the planning of 9,001, 14,001, and 45,001.
ISO 14,001 and 45,001 share similar subclause, which states that the organization shall determine and provide the resources needed for establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of their respective management system. ISO 9001, however, is a bit different, that it has subclauses. Subclause 7.1 is similar to subclause 7.1, with the added statement of that the organization shall consider the capabilities of and constraints on existing internal resources, as well as what needs to be obtained from external providers. It also has subclause 7.1.2, which states that the organization shall determine and provide the persons necessary for the effective implementation of its quality management system and for the operation and for its processes. ISO 9001 also has subclause 7.1.3, which states that the organization shall determine, provide, and maintain the infrastructure necessary for the operation of its processes and to achieve conformity of products and services. These infrastructures can include buildings and associated utilities, equipment including hardware and software, transportation resources, and information and communications technology. ISO 9001 also has subclause 1.4, which emphasizes on the environment necessary for the operation of its processes. A suitable environment can be a combination of human and physical factors, such as socially, psychologically, and physically. These factors can differ substantially depending on the products and services provided. Next, we come to subclause 7.1.5, which states that the organization needs to determine and provide resources to ensure the validity and reliability of results when monitoring or measuring is used to verify the conformity of products and such. They also need to ensure that the resources provided are suitable for the specific type of monitoring and measurement activities being undertaken, as well as being regularly maintained. Subclause 7.6 states that the organization shall determine the knowledge necessary for the operations of its processes. This knowledge shall be maintained and made available to the extent necessary. When addressing changing needs and trends, the organization shall consider its current knowledge and determine how to acquire or access any additional knowledge or updates required. Do note that organizational knowledge is knowledge specific to the organization, usually gained by experience. Organizational knowledge can be based on internal sources and or external. Subclass 7.2 is similar across the ISOs, with the few exceptions of 14,001 stating that the organization shall determine the training needs associated with its environmental aspect and management system, and 45,001 stating that the workers must be competent, with the inclusion of being able to identify hazards. Subclass 7.3 awareness is also similar across the ISOs, which states that the organization shall ensure that the people are aware of the policies and objectives, as well as making sure that the people are aware of their contribution to the effectiveness of the management system, including the benefits of an improved performance. Subclass 7.4 is a bit different across the ISOs, with ISO 14001 and 45,001 having subclasses, but they all generally mean that the organization shall determine the internal and external communications relevant. These two ISOs have a lot in common in the subclass, with the exception being ISO 45,001 stating that the organization needs to take into account diversity aspects as well as views from external interested parties. Both ISOs have similar subclass, which states that organization shall be internally communicate information relevant to the management system among various levels and functions of the organization, including changes, and then ensuring its communication process enables people or workers to contribute to continual improvement. For external communication, the organization shall externally communicate information relevant to the management system as established by the organization's communication process. The ISO have similar subclass, with the subclass stating that the organization shall include documented information required by the document or international standard, and documented information determined by the organization as being necessary for the effectiveness of the management system. Once again, all three ISOs have very similar subclass, with 7.5.2 talking about creating and updating documented information, and 7.5.3 talking about controlling how documented information is being used.
Alright, basically the three ISO have the similarities in terms of operational planning control in terms of general, where there are established criteria for the process, implementing control of the process in accordance with the criteria, and lastly, maintaining and retaining document information to the extent necessary to have confidence that the process has been carried out as planned. Alright, we move to ISO 45,001. They have additional subclass, which is eliminating hazard and reducing OH and S risk and management of change. Eliminating hazard and reducing OH and S risk, which are the organization shall establish, implement and maintain a process for the elimination of hazard and reduce OH and S risk by using the following hierarchy of control. 1. Eliminating the hazard. 2. Substitute less hazard processes, operation, material or equipment. 3. Use administrative control including training, and lastly, use personal protective equipment, which is PPE. For management of change, the organization shall establish a process for implementation and control of planned temporary and permanent change that impact OH and S performance, including firstly, new product, service and processes, or change to existing product, service and processes. Secondly, change to legal requirement and other requirements. Thirdly, change in knowledge or information about hazard and OH and S risk. And lastly, development in knowledge and technology. For 8.2, which is Emergency Preparedness and Response, ISO 40,001 and ISO 45,001 have the same content, which the organization shall establish, implement and maintain a process needed to prepare for and respond to potential emergency situation first by establish planning response to emergency situation by including the provision of first aid. Next, providing training for the plan response, and lastly, periodically testing and exercising plan response capability. Meanwhile, for ISO 90,001 have the different content for 8.2, which is requirements for products and services. First, for customer communication. Communication with customer should include providing information relating to product and services. Next, handling inquiries, contracts or order, including changes. And lastly, obtain customer feedback related to product and services, including customer complaints. And for determining the requirement for product and service, the organization should ensure that the requirement for the product and services are defined, and the organization that can meet the claims for the product and services it offers. For the renewal of the requirement for product and services, the organization shall review before commencing to supply product and services to customer, including requirements specified by customer. Next, requirements that are specified by the organization, and lastly, statutory and regulatory requirement. Lastly, change to requirement for product and service. Ensure relevant information documents are amended. For ISO 90,001, they are also have additional subclasses such as design and development of product, control the externally provide process, product and services, and production and service provision, release of product and service, and lastly, control of non-conforming output. In 9.1, monitoring, measurement, analysis and evaluation, the 9.1.1 general, all of the three standards mention the same point, where the organization should determine what, how and when the monitoring should be performed and when the result need to be evaluated. The only difference in this point is ISO 9001 did not mention about any criteria, meanwhile the other two mention about their own standards criteria. The three standards also mention how the organization should evaluate the performance, and it is based on the standards' respective main focus. The similarities here is all of it mentioned that appropriate document need to be retained, and only ISO 14001 and 45001 mention about verifying the measurement equipment. For ISO 14001 and 45001, they have the similarities. For point 9.1.2, evaluation of compliance. This point highlight that the organization need to fulfill its compliance obligations with legal requirements. Meanwhile, ISO 9001 have a different 9.1.2, which is the customer satisfaction, where it highlights about how the organization should fulfills the customer needs and expectation. ISO 9001 also have 9.1.3 analysis and evaluation that the other two standards do not have. It highlights how the organization should analyze and evaluate appropriate data and information that is gained from the monitoring. 9.2 internal audit. This point highlights how the internal audits should be conducted, and the only difference between these three standards is how the organizations need to fulfill the requirement based on the standards' respective main focus, like environmental, quality or OH&S management system. For 9.2.2 internal audit program, all of the standards have the similarities here, where it mentions how the organization should plan, establish, implement and maintain an audit program. 9.3 management review. In general, this point highlight how the top management should review the organization's environmental, quality or occupational health and safety management system at the planned intervals. For 9.3.2 management review inputs, it has similarities where it states how the management review should include the consideration of status of action from previous management review, adequacy resources and opportunities for continual improvement. And the differences in this point is changes in external and internal issues that are relevant to the standards' respective main focus, as well as the objectives achievement. ISO 14001 and 45001 mention what need to be included, like the needs and expectations of interested parties and risks and opportunities. ISO 9001 does not mention in detail about what need to be included, and information of the performance, including trends in non-conformities, monitoring result and audit result, are the same for all standards, and the rest are different based on the respective standard requirement. 9.3.3 management review outputs. For this point, it highlights the decision and action that should be made by the management. The similarities that these three standards have: opportunities for improvement and retain documented information, and the difference is any need for changes based on the standards' respective management system. For ISO 14001 and 45001, point is added with continuing suitability, opportunities to improve integration, any implications for the strategic direction and action needed.
For subclause 10.1 general, ISO 14001 and 45001 have the same content, which is the organization shall determine opportunities and improvement and implement necessary action to achieve the intended outcomes, while for ISO 9001 is the organization shall determine and select opportunities for the improvement and implement any necessary action to meet the customer requirements and enhance the customer satisfaction. For subclause 10.2, non-conformity and corrective actions, for the similarity of the content across all ISO is when a non-conformity or incident including any arising complaint occurs, the organization shall react to the non-conformity, review the effectiveness and make changes to the PMS and OH&S management system. And they all have different other content in each ISO. For 10.3 continual improvement, ISO 14001 and ISO 45001 have the same content, which is to enhance environmental performance and OH&S performance, while for ISO 9001, it is to consider the result and analysis as part of continual improvement.